player recruitment and player trading has to be a fundamental to any successful team, especially in Scotland, where we know every club is struggling financially in terms of turning a profit and maximising revenue. I think if you can bring out a young player and sell them on, then it has a hugely impactful element on your finances, as you're seeing there with Aberdeen. And you think, Calvin Ramsey, who went down to Liverpool.
Yeah, I know it's a given now, but it was a given when I was playing away back. At the end of the season, you'd all be sitting in the dressing room waiting to know who was going to get sold, because you knew the club had to sell one of his to balance the books. It was just part and parcel.
My only criticism, it's not a criticism, because I know clubs and I know scouts will be saying, "Oh, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about with this issue." I just want to see more Scottish players playing. And, Fergie changed the landscape of Scottish football by saying, OK, I've got players up here that are really good. Get the scouts out and start nicking players from down in the West and get them up here and say, you're going to get a game. And, I'd like to see more Scottish clubs look and say, right, we're going to stick with some of the Scottish players. We're going to recruit from within here as well.
I agree.
And we can sell them on.
I think everybody's wanting to see more Scottish players come through and make an impact in the first team or get sold on to make the club money. But if you think about it for the other side, that's what everybody wants. But when you think about it for the other side, managers' jobs so volatile. You're always 4 or 5 games away from being under severe pressure to losing your job. So if you look at, if you're put in that position, you need to win games. There's always a gamble with young players to go in and make mistakes. So that's the other side of it, saying, are you a manager that's going to say, do you know what, they'll make mistakes, I'll be under pressure, but I'll stick with them. Will the board stick with you then? Or do you just say, do you know what, there's a 28-year-old there that's already proven, get him in, the youth can wait. So it's two sides.
It's a chicken and the egg, but my point on this, Lee, is I'd rather go down fighting at the moment, giving somebody a chance to get, for example, an Alex Lowry. Give him 50 to 100 games and let's see him develop. And let's see if he can suddenly turn himself.
So why is he not getting that at Rangers? Why has another Scottish club had to take him and loan to develop him without developing their own?
Well, here's my point.
So he's stunting the growth of the young ones there.
They're not proving the case by not picking him. They're proving the case by their failure last season. Because the foreign players that they brought in didn't do them any good. You've got 4 or 5 players that you could rhyme off at Rangers. There's 4 or 5 players rhymed off at Celtic who they brought in. I mean, I could just touch on the boy Tillio, who's come in from Australia. He wants to move away. He's not getting a kick.
So that's how hard it is to make it.
Well, David Turnbull, out of favour.
Rangers and Celtic.
Now in favour.
But for all the other clubs, look at Motherwell, Lennon Miller. The manager, Lennon Miller's been great this season. But the manager's, he's made a few mistakes. The manager's sticking with him.
I think to his credit.
He's saying, did the board then look at the position of my job because I'm playing a young guy who's making mistakes, who's costing us points, so we're not winning every week like we were at the start. So there's just two sides.
To be fair to Lennon Miller, they were winning when he was playing.
Yes, I know. He's been brilliant. But that was just an example.
It's not being xenophobic about the whole thing, Ali. It's just a situation where we've got lots and lots of good players, and we've got to credit the SFA for that whole grassroots thing where more and more players are going down south.
I think their performance academy has worked. I think over the last decade, you've seen a decent number of players come out. I think the fact that you have players playing down south, playing in the most competitive leagues in Europe, players playing in Italy and doing particularly well, reflects well on what they learned and where they had to go. But then the converse of that is, when you look at Lewis Ferguson, Hickey, John McGinn, players that were linked with Celtic and Rangers didn't want to pay the money, didn't think they were going to be good enough to go in and walk into the first team, who went and developed elsewhere. I think there is an argument to say you have to try and bring them in, and you're appreciative of the pressure. I think Celtic and Rangers would be a particular case in point. I think there's pressure for every club and every manager. Celtic and Rangers, you know the intensity and the noise it builds. If you go 2 or 3 games and it's not been particularly successful, you know exactly what's coming, so you can appreciate the pressure in managers. But I think you would like to see more players coming through and being given a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, they deserve criticism. They deserve criticism, some of the clubs, because they've spent £4 and £5 million on players that have been taking huge amounts of money, and they haven't stepped up to the plate, and they haven't been value for money. And you've watched a Nisbet, you've watched a Shanklin, you've watched a McGinn, all those players, Lewis Ferguson, they've all gone, and they were there for £1 million. They didn't take a chance.
Sometimes the foreigner can be more attractive.
Absolutely. Ferguson should have had an O in the back of his name.
Yeah.
And somebody would have signed him. Ruffy's thinking.
Try to work that out.
Fergusano.